Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe. Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Payne, founder and owner of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today, I have with me Mike Falk, developer in Marin. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, I have our founding agent, Isaiah Chass. Isaiah, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
So today we're going to talk about a project that you've been working on for some time right now, 55 Brookdale Apartments, the Brookdale Apartments right off Lincoln Avenue in San Rafael that way.
Yep.
So why don't we jump right into it and tell us, kind of the history of the project and then kind of how you got involved in this.
Sure. So as a Marin-based developer, I'm always kind of on the lookout for opportunities in Marin or Sonoma. In the city. And this one came up. It came on the market in March of 2020. So this is just as the pandemic is setting in.
Uh-huh.
And it sat on the market for a couple months with no interest at all. I became aware of it in May of 2020. And we put it into contract. And it's two adjacent lots. They're street to street from Brookdale to Lincoln, totaling a little over 11,000 square feet between the combined lots. And that part of Lincoln is fairly thoroughly developed.
Right. This looks like a very good fit for that area that way, that it goes with what's currently right there.
Yeah, this is sort of the broken tooth within that street.
Right.
You got sort of built on both sides, but this is the one lot. And actually it had a duplex on there, I think probably built in the 20s or turn of the century, something like that. It burned down in the 60s and then just never got replaced.
Really? Okay.
And the previous owner, he had been a developer. He eventually passed away, but his kids sold the property. But that property was always something that he was going to develop at some point and just kind of never got around to it. So it has sat there, until today,
Sure.
As a vacant lot.
Uh-huh.
It also has a sort of a unique challenge or a constraint. It has a part of a culvert, a good-sized culvert that runs diagonally underneath it. So that always sort of impinged how you could use the property.
Sure.
And I think even for the people that were selling it, the thought was, well, maybe you could get 4 units on there or something like that. And we just set about kind of figuring out exactly where the culvert was and how we could fit some things in there. So we put together a program of 10 units separated between 3 different buildings. And because Lincoln has a certain architectural style, and you see some things that are more contemporary there, and then the Brookdale side has something that's more traditional, and you have a lot of single-family homes. We did something on the Brookdale side that reads more traditional, and on the Lincoln side more contemporary.
Ah, how cool! So it really fits in with the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the way I look at most properties is really like what's speaking to me about that site.
Right.
How do we make something that integrates well with the neighborhood that doesn't stick out?
That's really nice. So again, we bring up a point of this in our podcast that here we have another local developer that's trying to integrate within the community. So I just think it's really important. We constantly bring that up because people have these misconceptions about local builders and developers and things of that nature. You actually took the time to figure out, hey, how can we make this work within the current, make it fit within the neighborhood that way so it's not an eyesore, it doesn't stick out. It goes with the grain of the neighborhood that way. So
for sure. And that's, it's more than just design or architecture. It's really an acknowledgement of, well, what does this neighborhood need? And we know, broadly speaking, housing's needed everywhere. That's certainly true in San Rafael too. Do condos fit there? Probably not. This is rental housing. Not that you couldn't do condos there, and not that you couldn't condo this project. But for the way we thought about it, we thought units work particularly well there. And then as I met with all the neighbors, one of the things that came up frequently was parking. And so
is the thing that comes up with a lot of projects.
Right.
So a lot of the units that are up on Lincoln tend to park down on Brookdale, so the people on Brookdale get very frustrated with all the lack of parking down there. And when a lot of those buildings were built, they weren't built with an excess of parking. So that was the other part that we really spent a lot of time. Like, how do we make this a buildable project? I.e., we're not doing podiums or tuck under or something like that gets more expensive. How can we keep our parking fairly inexpensive to build, but then provide enough parking? So this particular project has 18 parking spots.
Okay.
But if you're going to do 18 parking spots in a typical surface lot with drive lanes and that kind of stuff.
That's a lot of space.
Yeah, I mean, you could take up your 11,000 feet quick.
Right.
So this project, we have no driveways. All the parking is accessed from the Brookdale side, and we've done a combination of tandem and mechanical lifts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But then you're not giving up any of your land space to driveways. And
right.
So if you look at this project, it's really pedestrian centric. Like that's the feel, and that's generally my philosophy on how we develop projects. Anyway, is we look for sites that are walkable, that you can get to amenities, but then the site itself and the feel itself when you're there has a sort of pedestrian scale or human scale, pedestrian centric thing. So the cars are really a secondary thought. This particular project also has each unit has its own separate bike storage or bike garage, but they're I think they're 4 feet by 8 feet or 5 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet tall, like a little bike garage. So if you're asking someone to not necessarily take their car to be the first thing that they get around town in,
right.
And this particular site is right off the bike path. It's 0.8 of a mile to 4th Street in the transit terminal. So if you want someone to take their bike first, well, you don't want to necessarily tell them to hike their bike up the stairs into their apartment and sit it there in the living room. You got to give them a way to,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's the future. And now I'm starting to get some context of this project.
Yeah.
So now I can see this is a really cool project that way. When you were first talking about it, I didn't you read on paper mechanical parking lifts. You're like, okay, what's that?
Yeah,
about, right?
That's a weird stretch.
Right? And let's just give people some context here that parking is kind of an issue with real estate. I don't know in San Rafael specifically what it is, but here in Petaluma, we allocate about 3 parking spaces for every residential unit built. And that can greatly drive up the cost of real estate. So I would...
Well, depending on how you're using it.
Right.
If you're using a standard, 9 foot by 20 foot space, and you're doing 3 of those, that eats up a lot of space very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, going to mechanical lifts and things like that,
right,
really kind of opens up the doors for projects like this.
For sure, and these are these are going to be sitting outside. I mean, the way you've typically seen mechanical lifts being used, parking lifts being used, is in a high or mid-rise building in the city, and you're putting those in garage spaces that are expensive to develop in the first place.
Right.
We're doing something different, but the lifts themselves, a standard, not an exotic sort of separate sleds and puzzle system, nothing like that. A basic up-down lift can be had for as little as about $4,000, and for something that's more for this project, I think we've got $9,000 or $10,000 per lift.
Right.
But that's a significant savings
that
over
is.
The driveways, the asphalt, all that kind of stuff.
Right. No, that's a really cool concept. I don't want to get too off on this. I'm kind of a car guy though.
Yeah.
So is this similar? So is this similar to like one of the hydraulic lifts that are available inside your garage now,
Yes.
where you can stack 2 cars?
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, that's what. Okay, very cool.
So really, very standard stuff. So
Right.
we have 10 units here. 9 of them each have 2 spaces. So for this particular stacked lift, that would be 1 unit with the 2 stacked spaces. So you don't have other tenants operating your lift with your car on it. You got your lift, you got your 2 cars there, done.
Right.
Really simple stuff. If power goes out, you just, there's no power needed to lower a car.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, and back to the bike parking, that's huge. That's something that we feel is so important with new development projects. I think we're going towards a vision of people being able to be more bike centric and walking and riding their bicycle to city centers and to work, even to public transit. What a great way to utilize
especially because this one, I mean, literally the bike path is adjacent. You know, we're on one side of Brookdale, the other side of Brookdale, and I'll tell you an interesting story about that in a second. We've got sort of open space, then we've got the smart train rails, the sound wall, the bike path, the freeway. Like, at the end of the block, you're on that bike path, and you're, you know, whether you're going north or south, I mean,
you're there.
You have access. So,
right.
You know, it would be criminal for us not to really think bikes through for this project. But I think it's more than just, you know, let's make bikes, you know, bike parking available. It's the quality of that bike parking, because, you know, I mean, I'm a cyclist. I have expensive bikes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to put my bike, certainly an expensive bike, in a room for bikes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I'm going to be afraid that someone's going to come in there and clip it. So, you know, separate storage, it is your, and whether you put luggage in there or whatever you put in there, that's important for someone who expects to use their bike and, you know, doesn't want it screwed around with.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's again great. I don't know. We have e-bikes here in the office. We're going to start showing homes on e-bikes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of like what we're going to start doing this year. Same concepts, but I just want to go. So, getting a better idea of what your really looks like. You know, you're familiar with the 15-minute village concept, things of that nature. I mean, that's really what you're building here. So, I mean, you have everything around you. You know, you have space for parking, but you probably can live your life without your car a lot of the time and promote a healthy lifestyle and things of that nature, and a more convenient lifestyle that way.
Yeah.
So
especially for this site, because you're so close to a transit hub.
Right.
And then the bike path. But yeah, I mean, I would think for a lot of people, so this particular project has 9 2-bedrooms and 1 1-bedroom. And one of those twos is affordable. But yeah, so you're figuring there's probably 2 people living, maybe more,
right,
in each unit, and historically that would be two cars. Mm-hmm. But with its adjacency to amenities and to transportation, you know, could you get along with 1 car and an e-bike or 2 e-bikes? Yeah, probably pretty easily.
Right. Yeah. No, again, like, I think people need to be educated about this. I think there's going to be some pushback just because it sounds like a foreign idea initially, but
sure,
this is the future. Like, this is really where we're going. So,
yeah.
And it makes sense for a variety of reasons, you know.
Well, and we're seeing value in real estate there too, right? So you're seeing a lot more value for things. Certainly this is true with single families. You know, what used to be 30 years ago, having the house at the end of the road at the top of the hill was great, you know.
Right.
And now those have less value, and the ones that are down in the flats with the sidewalks and walk to school are the really valuable houses.
No, exactly. And then, like, God forbid, let's say it doesn't happen. Let's say COVID hits again tomorrow or something, ever get shut down. These are the type of projects that people can live in and actually get out and still live a healthy lifestyle. And for us, that's so important. That's really what we want to promote is you know, housing and real estate should have an active, healthy component to it, in our opinion. So yeah, that's it.
Well,
I totally.
And the spaces should be flexible. Not only that, they should be flexible. The spaces themselves should be flexible. So, you know, if you look at all our competitive product on Lincoln there, for example, you know, a lot of it was built in the 60s and 70s, 50s, right, whatever. And it's pretty, you know, 8-foot ceilings and sort of standard 1,000 feet kind of thing. With what we designed offices. Every unit has an office. Some actually have full, like, lock-off offices, because, you know, potentially you're working at home or, you know, doing a podcast or whatever it is.
Right.
And so when that tenant's out there looking at what's available and they're looking at a 2-bedroom with an office versus a 2-bedroom without, or we can be very competitive. And it's not like there's a lot of extra space that's devoted to that. It's just a lot of thoughtful design before you've built it. And
right.
Then you can have, like I said, something that's really competitive within that set.
Very cool. Very cool.
From everything I've heard, it's a really well thought out project, especially for the location in the space. You hear about a lot of projects where a big builder, maybe a national builder, will come and just try to get as many units and as cheaply as possible. This is a project that is completely opposite of really fitting the space well and providing what people need in that area.
Well, so now to kind of drill in on the design a little bit more, if you're looking at the renders and that we did for this project, you'll see there's the Lincoln facing side and the Brookdale facing side. There's parking, and you kind of walk through this portico on the Lincoln side. You come down, and all the buildings sort of face into a central courtyard, and within that courtyard we've got relaxation space, we've got gym space, and all that. So really, if we're going to put someone in a place, we're going to do a fair number of units there, and we're going to put them in a place where they don't have a lot of access to easy outdoor space, we've really got to make that space incredibly valuable. And I think if you look at the renders, you can really see that this sort of like series of outdoor rooms and living spaces is kind of the core ethos of this project.
Right. That's great. Again, very well thought out. So where exactly is the project now? What stage? Where are you at right now?
It's entitled right
okay.
now.
Okay, so it's ready to go.
Yeah,
Yep.
So we were actually the first. San Rafael decided to streamline their entitlement process, so we were the test case. If you were doing 10 units or less, they would do a combined planning commission and design review board hearing.
Okay.
So that happened a year ago, 10 months ago, in June of 2022. It was unanimous approval from both bodies. Then we've moved ahead and did some structural work to kind of flesh out the plans a little bit more. There are a few options that a developer or a contractor could take on how they would develop this. Obviously, the envelopes are set, but
Sure.
more technique kind of stuff. But with a little bit more work, you can be pulling permits pretty quick on this. And I think, not to speculate on who buys this, but it does seem to me, for a smaller developer like myself, or for a smaller contractor who's always wanted to build something and own it, there's nothing particularly complex about this site. It's very, very accessible.
Okay.
And a small 10-unit project is a nice thing to be able
To
to
have
tuck
in your,
away.
Right. To have in your pocket. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. Talking about that streamlined approval process, I'm hoping that sped things up for you. Were there any unique things that came up during the process that you had to deal with regarding to this project?
It did not go as quickly as we would have.
Weird.
Yeah, I know. We put our application in September of 21 and finally got that approval in June of 22.
Okay.
So, yeah, it went. And that has more to do,
You're the guinea pig.
Yes, but a lot of this had to do with, COVID hit counties and cities hard, and they lost staff.
Right.
And so they're, all operating on these really sort of skeleton staff, and, San Rafael, I would say San Rafael is a very easy and progressive town to work with.
Very good to know.
And I'm, one of the reasons why, this project ended up the way it does, because that is who they are. But it doesn't mean they don't run into staffing problems or that kind of stuff. So it took longer than it should have, but I think the staff there are really good and the city is progressive in so much as they want to assist development for units.
That's great, and that's good to know, so that for any potential buyers out there, that you have a municipality that wants to work with you, that has seen a need for housing. Because if you come up
Not
here
like
north
a
a
lot.
little bit, it can be a little bit more of a fight that way. So
Things have changed, right? I mean, with the regional housing needs analysis numbers that come out every 8 years.
right,
This current cycle that we're just starting,
right.
Has been a wake up for every county and city as far as numbers of units that they need to produce, and there's no kind of like hedging anymore, because
I hope that's the case. Attending city council meetings up here in Sonoma County, the consensus that we come away with is that, they've allocated 14,500 units that need to be built in this next 8-year time period in Sonoma County. I'd say the consensus within the city council member meetings up here is how can we build as few units as possible and still stay in the good graces of the county or the state. You don't actually have to build that many units. You have to show good faith in building those units. And so I hope that's the case, but from the rhetoric I've been hearing locally at the meetings is that how many units do we have to build to stay in the good grace of the state? Not the numbers, and that concerns me quite a bit. So
I'll give you a little. So Marin County, unincorporated Marin County, in the last cycle had to do something like 160 units. In this current cycle, it's 3,563. I mean, it's exponential growth. There's no kind of. They're using every means available. They need to use every means
right,
available.
They do. Yes.
Well, especially
yes.
last cycle compared to this cycle, we're building, I think, 40% less housing than we were in last cycle, and we need more housing than we needed last cycle.
Yeah, we had Generation Housing on our podcast. Are you familiar with Generation Housing? Generation H. They're a great organization up here, pro-building, advocate for housing, the needs for housing. They actually put together a study saying that we need 58,000 units here built in the next 8 years, over 14. But anyway, I'm digressing. So anyway, but this is a project that certainly fits within the housing needs. This is exactly what we need: increased density, infill projects of this nature. And you've done a great job thinking this one through that way. So,
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like people to know about this project or anything like that?
I mean, it has an affordable unit in it that makes it an affordable project.
Right.
So that's an important give back. And I know there are people that be like, it should all be affordable, which it should be if you want to allocate public funds to it, but that's not where we are. And so for private developers, you still have to make a project that pencils. And San Rafael actually had a 20% threshold, and they lowered it because they just weren't seeing any projects being built.
Right. Yep.
So
we talk about that quite a bit on the podcast. That that at the private sector, you have to have that. You have to build more expensive housing to subsidize the less expensive housing. That's just a reality.
That's
right. So,
that's right.
Well, if someone is interested in this project, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So it's actually currently being listed with John Garrett at Marcus and Millichap.
Okay.
That would be the way.
Okay.
Like I'm happy to talk with anyone.
Sure. No,
that's
great.
Probably the route to.
Yeah. Can you state his name again, just so that everyone can hear it?
John Garrett.
Yeah.
Marcus and Millichap.
Okay.
Out of the San Francisco office.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I hope this project, projects like this are needed in the North Bay, so hopefully it's seen all the way through that way. And we'll be keeping our eye on it to watch it for the future that way. And Mike, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
On that note, I'm Sean Payne, founder and owner of LivXplore Real Estate and Lifestyle. Thank you very much for joining us today. If you like this content, please hit like and subscribe so you can see future episodes. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome to the LivXplore Podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.